Hillary has been lengthening her excuses as to why she lost the election. She didn't really lose the election. It was stolen from her by, I think it's up to 24 different excuses she has now. Number 24 is content farms in Macedonia. And as I said, my grandfather was a Macedonian content farmer, and we often think about, gathering on the porch and recalling the old days on the Macedonian. He never thought that the old content farmers he left behind in Macedonia would one day steal the U.S. presidential election. They are gnarled, hard-working Macedonian peasants, and the way they were able to reach out and,
in less than a week, Macedonians will observe, remember, and celebrate the start of the Ilinden Uprising, which began on August 2, 1903. In that brief 10-day period of the Khrushchev Republic, Macedonians undertook an audacious task, the overthrow of their Turkish overlords, and an attempt to establish an independent homeland for the Macedonian people and others who desired to live free rather than die. As Macedonians today reflect on that event in those times, they are again facing challenges to their identity and thus existence as Macedonians in a Republic of Macedonia. Who will govern Macedonia in the next few years? Who will lead Macedonians in the next few years? Those could be two very different groups of people. The men and women of the Ilinden Uprising made great sacrifices for an independent Macedonia, in some cases making the ultimate sacrifice of their lives. Were those sacrifices made in vain? We'll discuss all of this and more on this episode of the Macedonian Content Farmers Podcast. I'm Jason Miko, coming to you from the foot of the Catalina Mountains in Oro Valley, Arizona.
And this is Cvetin and Jason calling in from Skopje, Macedonia.
How you doing?
Fine, a bit tired as one is on the weekend. If you're not just sitting around but actually doing something.
Yes. Well, and here we are in the middle of summer. Macedonians really can't go anywhere outside of Macedonia because the coronavirus is still raging. Mm-hmm. Although I see the numbers came down slightly, which is good news for Macedonia. But
very slightly.
Yeah, but still you can't travel. But as I've always said, there's plenty of beautiful places in Macedonia to go to, and I think Macedonians, to the extent that they can, while they can't go other places, should go out and explore the rest of Macedonia. But as I mentioned in the opening monologue, we're recording this episode 81 of the Macedonian Content Farmers Podcast on Sunday, July 26th. 1 week from today will be the anniversary of the Ilinden Uprising, but today is the 57th anniversary of the earthquake in Skopje.
It was in 63, so a bit tired and it's hard to do the math, but
that's 57 years. Yes, so
yeah.
57 years ago. Yeah, the earthquake that destroyed much of Skopje. The old railway station still stands as a testament and a monument to that earthquake. But Macedonians rebuilt.
And built and overbuilt and over rebuilt and never stopped, honestly. And
yes. Well, of course, much of the building after that earthquake, of course, the world responded, with assistance of various kinds, but a lot of the architecture that went up after that was, I think it's described as brutalist. That's actually the term.
Concrete. Raw concrete on the outside,
right?
And it's a very fitting name.
Yes, it is, and actually, within the architectural world, a lot of people actually admire that. I'm not a particular admirer of that style, but and then of course, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I grew up underneath one of the most notable brutalist buildings, the post office, and I loathed it. I never liked it. I mean, normally when you grow up next to something, you get accustomed to it, and then you start liking it. I never could figure out what the point was. I was almost happy when a large part of it burned down in this freak fire in 2012, I think.
Ah, yes, I remember that.
Who knew that concrete can burn?
Yeah.
I didn't.
Oh, well.
Nobody was injured, I mean.
Yeah. Now, a major earthquake like that, my understanding, I remember doing some research on this years ago, just out of curiosity. A major earthquake like that happens once every 500 years or so. So hopefully Skopje and Macedonia, even though you have periodic earthquakes there throughout the year, or spared from anything major like that for the next 443 years or so.
Yeah, the big one that destroyed the entire province and made it fall to the Goths, made it, weakened it. It was like 580 something, I think. It destroyed
Right.
all the major cities like Heraclea, Skopje, and Skopje.
Yes.
Or Justiniana Prima at the time. And then I think there was a big one in 1500s. And then this one. So we had like a break of 1,000 years, then 500 years. But yeah, I mean, the consequence of the earthquake was that, reasonably sized city for like a provincial capital of about 150 to 100,000 people was expanded in a way that only a communist centrally governed megalomaniac could, megalomaniac government could. And now it's like 6, 7, 800,000 in this horrible brutalist style, and instead of having the entire country develop reasonably, like sent one, it was command economy, so the government could decide where to open a smelter or the bus factory or the large steel works, or or the huge chemical plant which were brought to Skopje, even though there was no natural resources that mandated it to be in Skopje. I mean, they could send one in Bitola, one in Prilep, one in Vilas, but after the earthquake, everything was concentrated in Skopje, and the city grew, expanded enormously, except, of course, add to this the huge bureaucratic apparatus. And now it's, an outsized monstrosity compared to the other cities which were left without resources. All the jobs went to Skopje, all the good jobs, all the blue-collar jobs went to Skopje. So it's leaching the rest of the country, and but the corona may fix this. I mean, the waiting people are fleeing the city now and going back where they came from.
Right. Yeah. Well, and as I understand it, you mentioned the jobs that all came to Skopje after the earthquake, because so much of international assistance was coming in. That precipitated a lot of that, and as you mentioned, a lot of the towns and villages and in the hinterland of Macedonia emptied out, and are still empty. The village where what's her name from Honeyland, Hadžice,
Atice,
where she comes from. She was the last one. She and her mother were the last ones there.
Yeah.
So,
and we're putting the region to good use as a NATO munitions testing ground. So yeah.
Oh goodness. Well, that's okay. So that's one anniversary, which was 57 years ago this very day, and a week from today, as I mentioned in the opening monologue, Ilinden, August 2nd, 1903, 10-day uprising. I think the battle actually lasted in various parts of Macedonia through November of that year, but that it was essentially the uprising. The core was crushed after 10 days. But that was really, one of the, as the sick man of Europe, as the Ottoman Empire was referred to back then, was crumbling. Various people groups tried to, really throw off the yoke of the Ottoman Empire. Macedonians, who had been yearning for an independent homeland for eons, finally gave it a go, as the British would say, and had one for 10 days, and now, and it's been a struggle ever since. Finally, in 1991, Macedonians got their independent Republic of Macedonia, and yet that is again under threat today. We just had elections on the 15th of July. Looks like at this point, and maybe you know more than I do, being there, that it looks like Citizen with their coalition partners BESA got 46 seats, although Citizen actually got 42.
42.
Yeah. So still Vomro beat him again, but they'll probably get the mandate from Stivo Pendarovski, although I did see that he was going to speak to the leaders of both parties first. But if I was a betting man, and I am, I would say that he would give it to them first, and we'll see. What's the latest going on there with that?
There is nothing much. I mean, Zaev, who was insisting on Corona elections, lower turnout, expecting that this would favor him, and it probably did. We lost about 200, 300,000 usual voters did not show up, and odds are that they would have punished him. So he insisted on speed, and then now he took vacation. He's nowhere to be seen. He's on vacation somewhere. He's posting pictures from Prispa with Borjan Jovanovski and the Montenegrin ambassador prancing around, and his wife. Yeah, it's a bit weird. Zaev took his wife.
Are they on Facebook, or is he doing this on Facebook or Twitter?
Everywhere, I think. But it's weird. He's wearing the same T-shirt, both he and his wife. So there are a lot of rumors that there was like one tour, and he's posting the same, different pictures, different locations, same dress code, in different days. So there is a rumor that he got a bunch of pictures taken on one go, and that they're now posting them every other day, but they didn't remember to tell him to change the clothes. While in the meantime, he's somewhere else, probably Greece, probably negotiating. Maybe Albania negotiating the coalition. But, he was acting like, I don't care, it's in the bag, I won, blah, 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 I'm going on vacation until the Electoral Commission sorts it all out. While Mickoski said, no, we're actively going to start working on preparing a new coalition, but he hasn't announced any actual meetings, Mickoski, but I'm sure both leaders are meeting. I mean, they're both. The elections were are widely considered to be a sham, especially for the way the votes were counted and the delays and the turnout and the hack attack, which the Electoral Commission insists did not affect the voting, the counting, but nobody believes this. Vamura demanded a full recount, manual recount. The Electoral Commission and the courts refused this, so we're going to continue to have this dark cloud of suspicion over the elections. Nobody can form a government, Vamura or SDSM by themselves. There is no clear winner. Even with Dewey, it's doubtful. Both sides could form a government with Dewey, but it's going to be like one vote majority, so it's not very comfortable. There are rumors that Zaev is again offering money to Vamura or other members of parliament, like he did after over the name change in 2018, so that he wants to purchase his new majority. Ahmeti has been summoned to The Hague as a witness, as he claims.
Yes.
This throws a wrench in any coalition deal making. And again, I mean, as we discussed last time, the crazy theory I put forward that this is all being engineered so that the logical conclusion is Ahmeti goes to The Hague in some capacity, as a nationalist fights to protect the good name of the Uchaka, blah, blah, blah. But this moves him out of the coalition. He says we will not join the coalition until we clear the name and we'll work from the opposition. And that Vamura and SDSM form a government possibly with the alliance and BISA providing the necessary number of Albanians, to have a feel of a multi-ethnic government. And again, the purpose of this would be to ensnare Vamura in a arrangement in which they're part of a government which uses the name North Macedonia, and in this way, practically moves us further away from challenging the imposed name in a future constellation. Once Vamura is strong enough and has power in full, they would be a party which has already been using the name for years if they eventually grab power in full. So this is my theory, and it's holding out pretty good so far.
Interesting. Well, we will see in a little over a week what the plans are. Besides what I mentioned about Pendarovsky saying that he was going to talk to leaders of both parties, has he said anything else?
No, he will probably give the mandate to Zaev initially. Then Zaev will have 20 days to form a government. But it's possible that, and then if he fails, Pendarovsky needs to give the mandate to somebody else.
Right.
Now he could still give it again to an SDSM candidate. It's possible that Zaev is told to step down as part of an arrangement if talks begin in these 20 days on a grand coalition but Zaev fails to form a government in this time. It's possible that they move to a different candidate, a non-partisan candidate. All it takes is that a candidate is put forward by parties which can show they have the majority, or if a party has won and then pledges, I'll try to form a majority. But I mean, he can keep giving it to SDSM, he can give it to a non-partisan professorial type, somebody like they do in Slovenia or like we did in the early 90s with Nikola Krusev with a ostensibly non-partisan government, but in reality everybody knew which minister is backed by which party. So we'll see. I mean, they will. It's a lot of gray area for Pendarovsky to, he can give it to a bunch of people, the mandate to form the government. Maybe even Ahmeti at one point.
Huh. Well.
If he's not arrested.
Oh dear. Well, goodness. Okay. Well. Anyway, we wait on that. Other news this week. Oh, I know what we wanted to talk about. Dua Lipa, who I don't follow little teeny bopper pop stars, but she is born in England, ethnic Albanian, parents from Kosovo. Apparently quite popular with her music. I couldn't tell you. Let's see, what does it say here? Pop, synth pop, dance pop, dream pop. I don't know what dream pop is. I've never heard of that, but I wouldn't be caught dead listening to this. But she made a splash this week when she posted on, I believe it was Twitter, a flag of basically Greater Albania. And what did she say in something about the autonomous, or not autonomous, the word that doesn't make any sense to English speakers, I don't even.
Autochthonous.
Thank you. Yes, that's the strange. I still don't even know what it means after 25 years of being involved in Macedonia. It's just one of those weird words. So, anyway, so she posted that, huge amount of blowback from everybody in the Balkan Peninsula, the Macedonians, the Serbians. Not sure about the Greeks. They probably did too, because part of the flag of Greater Albania covers Greece, basically. And then, of course, then the Albanians all pushed back and whatnot. And then I found it interesting that the journalist Michael Martins posted a question. He says, this is all on Twitter, he said, on the Balkans, is Albanian chauvinism maybe underreported in media? Not because it is less aggressive than Serbian, Croatian, and XYZ chauvinism, but because most foreign journos simply do not know Albanian, thus rather telling stories from country whose language they understand. So his tweet then caused a huge amount of backlash, mostly from the Albanians, basically claiming that Albanians are the most peaceful, wonderful, gentle, lovely people that God ever created, and there's no way that they could be chauvinists or anything else. Except for this one Albanian, no idea who he is, doesn't matter. He retorted to Michael Martin's, quote, "The plot of Dua's post was to EU, who is jerking us around with this visa liberalization. We are not 100 million. We are poor," and here's the key. "We are poor, but remember, we have a trigger that can," and then he's got an imagery of a flame. "We have a trigger that can burn up the atmosphere," and which, of course, is the correct answer. That's always the threat. How did the Macedonians, to the extent that you followed it, react to her post and the subsequent fallout?
Yeah, it's a very nationalist comment. The autochthonous comment is actually in line with what we've kept saying here. I mean, under the Prespa Treaty, we are declared to be exclusively Slavic, no deeper roots in the Balkans. I mean, they're deep enough. The Slavic migration is believed to have happened like 1500 years ago. That's much older than most countries. But still, in Balkan terms, Uh, yeah.
That's yesterday.
For an American, for a gringo.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, in Balkan terms, it's the comment is maybe it's even worse. Albanians have tried to explain away the map, like, okay, yeah, but these are the borders, the lands where Albanians live, and there are Albanians there. Okay, fine, but the word autochthonous claims that they were there, that it's their land, while and she used an explanation from a dictionary which said not immigrants, not settlers.
Right.
So people who were there have not migrated into the territory, and uh, so basically, yeah, she's telling us, she's telling the Serbs, the Montenegrins, even possibly the Greeks, even though the Greeks are exclusively very super old and never mixed with anybody, pure-blooded. So she's telling us that we are settlers, usurpers on Albanian land. I mean, there's really no other way to understand the comment. And as you said, Albanians often make this other comment as well. Give us EU integration, give us EU accession talks, or we should.
Yeah.
So this is, Edi Rama has made this comment publicly frequently. Yeah. And obviously they started the war in Macedonia in 2001 for no good reason other than that they had the American support and residual support from Kosovo and the entire machinery and apparatus to wage war, and nobody to wage war against at the moment except Macedonia or Montenegro.
Mm-hmm.
Serbia was settled at the moment. Then they, Albanians attacked Skopje, attacked Kumanovo in 2015, and they keep electing, especially in Macedonia, warlords, in Kosovo as well. So, Martens is 100% right. And at one point, they're going to chew off more, they're going to bite more than they can chew, and it's all going to end badly. But as we are being written out of the existence of sovereign nations, we call it državotvorni, nations which are worthy of a state, which are which state-forming nations. Mm-hmm. We are the most obvious candidate for the next round. And somebody was commenting on Martens, and I said, some Bulgarian guy, and I said, yeah, well, soon you'll be negotiating a mutual border with Dua Lipa, with Queen Dua of Kosovo, the way things are going. If you're not careful, if this buffer state, as we are, keeps being eroded, and it is being eroded as we keep undermining Macedonian national identity.
Right.
But okay, I mean, all more power to them. I mean, I hope they try, because it's all this. It's very duplicitous. All this. No, we only care about democracy, human rights. No, we were discriminated against in Macedonia. That's why we started shooting. It's all bollocks. It's a nationalist project fueled by drug money, and eventually it's gonna keep confronting, and not to mention, part of an Islamist project, part of reversing the victories of the Christian nations of the late 1800s, early 1900s, and it's obviously the Sultan has his plans, in which Albanians, Bosnians have their place, have their role to play, and how it's going to proceed, we don't know, but there is obviously an attempt to reverse the victories of the Christian nations from the Balkan Wars, and we'll keep seeing more and more of this.
Yeah, the Albanians tend to play the victim card quite a bit, unfortunately, and actually slightly related to that, but slightly feel like I watched a great documentary last night called Uncle Tom. Came out this year. You can imagine what it's about. It's a group of conservative Black Americans that got together and put this together to talk about all of the blacks in America who do not play the victim card, who they're conservatives, and for some of them, how the documentary shows how they went from being leftist Democrats who believed that they were the victim and there was nothing that could be done to seeing the light, quote unquote, and then coming over to the other side and realizing that yes, while America had its original sin of slavery, we've worked to overcome that. We're still working to overcome that, but these Black Americans in this film don't see themselves as victims. And they want to, and they see the Democrat Party as constantly telling them that they are victims and there's nothing they can do about it except give power to the Democrat leaders who, tell them that they are, poor, dumb, and stupid, basically. And it's similar, I think, with the Albanians. The leadership of the Albanians in, let's say, just for Macedonia, basically tell Macedonia's minority Albanians that they're poor, dumb, and stupid, and the only thing they can do is vote for the Ali Ahmeti and the others, who don't do anything for their constituency. Where are the jobs, which is the thing that's most needed for everybody in Macedonia: Macedonians, Albanians, Bosnians, Turks, Roma, etc. So it's in watching this film last night, I was thinking, where are the voices amongst the Albanian minority in Macedonia that can stand up and say, you know what, we're going to take responsibility here, and we're not just going to play the victim card all the time. I maintain, Cvetin, since I've been involved now in Macedonia for almost a quarter of a century, that the problem for Macedonia's ethnic Albanians is that the leaders there have been frankly lazy, and they have not, looked at what is necessary not just for their own constituency but for all Macedonians to make Macedonia, wealthy, secure, stable. But yeah, and you mentioned the drug money and whatnot, and there's a quote, I can't remember where it is, I don't have it right in front of me, where Ali Ahmeti basically tells the interviewer, we're not so naive as to think that that money from smuggling and other things doesn't get to us and support our party. So it's, and he basically admits it.
Good use of the passive voice there. Now just look at all the conspiracy theories which were woven to explain away a very clear-cut attack from Kosovo on Macedonia in 2015 during the wiretapping scandal, the attack on Kumanova, and all the conspiracy theories that were made up just to obscure the fact that the Albanians are seeing a weak country, the weakening of Macedonia and Macedonian national identity, and say, okay, great, they're ripe for the taking. Now is the moment. Let's seize it. And Hillary's going to win the elections. She's going to cover us in the future, and we can do whatever we want. And very similar calculations are now going with the Biden administration coming, and they're openly calculating that, okay, now is the moment, now is the time. Soon this nightmare of Trump will be over. Not that he did anything to them, but or that he did anything foreign policy related, but soon we'll have our own people back in position, and we can push forward. We'll paint the Macedonians, the Serbs, as Russians, Slavs, opponents of the West, etc. And then once the West is weakened, if Turkey is assertive again, or if China, they have in the past 100 years. Albania has built an ideology based on communist China. I kid you not. The Enver Hoxha system was not considered Soviet Russia, not communist enough, so they looked for inspiration in Maoist China. And they have, obviously, because of the Islamization, they have pledged allegiance to Turkey, to the Caliphate as well. So it would be, a complete no-brainer for them if the U.S. has served its purpose, if have gotten them to a certain point, but is no longer in position to dictate terms, whether it's because of some Balkan-style confrontation you got brewing up over there, or they will switch to a different side on the drop of the hat. While we on the other side have, as we discussed with the Ilinden Uprising, endured, preserved a culture largely unchanged, Um, Under Ottoman slavery, we resist too quick, adopting too quickly novelties coming from the West now. Although to a large extent we accept what's good, but we, for many things, especially the social changes, we say, okay, maybe not so fast here. So we are more rooted, more conservative in the sense that we would like to have something of our own, a culture of our own worth preserving. We would not just, people were very cynical about communism. People were obviously reluctant to accept, Macedonians did not accept Islam, are often cynical, especially now, of US-led Western, what we call it now, falsely calling it liberalism. So this is even the cultural difference between us. They are very quick to adopt any change, and they're great allies to whoever is in charge at the moment, and then they just Albanians just forget about them the morning after.
Right.
So it's not over.
No.
Joining NATO doesn't mean it's over, not by a long shot.
Well, yeah, no, and 3 points on that. Number one, you mentioned Biden, of course. I think we should mention for listeners that, of course, Biden's up in the polls, but you don't count Trump out. Plus, it's still a little less than 4 months. Anything can happen. At this point in 1988. Sorry, Michael Dukakis, the famous governor of I think Massachusetts, Greek, was up by 17 points over George H.W. Bush, and of course George H.W. Bush won. So, plus,
imagine.
Go ahead.
We could have easily declared independence at a time when a Greek was president of the U.S. and that would not have ended up well.
Yeah. But and of course it's not a national election here; it's state by state. So anyway, all that to say that a Biden presidency is not a foregone conclusion at this point.
Yeah, of course.
And I forgot my other 2 points, but that's okay. I think I was going to say something about NATO and the EU. Oh, I've been using this quote lately, and I need to just keep repeating it to get it across to folks that with the European Union, especially that Macedonia hopes to join within 10 years, perhaps, if you're lucky. That, of course, to paraphrase Voltaire, the European Union is becoming neither European nor a union. And by the time you get there, it will be neither. So good luck to you on that. What else do we got?
Good luck to the EU with us.
What's that?
With us joining. Good luck to the European Union with us joining.
Well, I know you keep tweeting, and we talk about it a lot. We're bringing the Balkans to you, so...
Oh yeah, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be beautiful. I mean, that's the worst punishment I can think of them. And I mentioned the attack on Kumanov, and just remember how extensively people like Team Judah were. I'm just repeating what people are saying on the ground, that somehow Gruevski and Mialkov organized the false flag, black ops, psy, whatever you call it, attack on themselves to stop everybody from talking about the wiretaps, which nobody was at the time. I mean, they had, it was May, by then, the shock effect has gone. We both had our big rallies, or actually, sorry, the rallies were shortly after the attack, but it was very clear that not too many people are budging on the wiretap issue. But it's interesting, how all of these conspiracies included Sasha Myalkov, that the VMRO appointed Nikola Gruevski's cousin security chief. He is this nefarious figure who is running the country, running regional criminal enterprises, and can order an attack of a group of Kosovo nationalists to attack Macedonia, and then have them killed, apparently. And have them agree to be killed. And the interesting development now, and none of these guys are mentioning it, is that Sasha Myalkov now has a very open coalition with SDSM. So he helped provide the Gang of Eight, the members of parliament from VMRO who voted with Zaev for the name change. Some are directly linked to Myalkov, others are influenced by him. Then he was kicked out of the party publicly over this, over lobbying with the members of parliament to vote for the name change, but there was not much in way of evidence. I mean, we know these people, like, they're close to him, we suspect that he's doing this, but there is not much evidence about it. But now Myalkov is, he set up a Facebook, he's giving interviews, which he never did, and calling for Mickovsky to resign. So basically, at a time when, it could go either way, a grand coalition, an SDSM government, or a Vemero-led government, Myalkov is openly doing Zaev's bidding, calling on Mickovsky to resign, to declare this outcome as a defeat, although, as you said, Vemero has more net seats than SDSM. And the Gang of Eight is joining him in this, so these completely discredited, now former members of parliament are making the same comments. Several former government ministers like Nikola Todorov and Nikola Popovsky, who was also quiet all this time, now he's surfaced, all seen as close to practically supporting Zaev at this point. And several local municipal officials / businessmen, real estate developers who got rich and powerful during the Vemero term, they're all attacking Mickovsky. And the most interesting part is that the Colored Revolution people, they are actually gleefully reporting on this. So after protesting against Myalkov for so long, now they're happy to join forces with him. I mean, he was the second most hated person in the country, next to Nikola Gruevski, and at times possibly even the first most hated person.
Right.
But now all these commentators from the left who were protesting against Myalkov, now they're happy that to repeat Myalkov's comments that Mickovsky must go and declare the outcome defeat and help Zaev form a government. And all these internationals who were also reporting on these horrible slanders and allegations that we attacked ourselves. We got Albanians to attack us in a staged operation, manufactured attack. Now they're quiet, they're not reporting on this. They're not saying that, well, curious thing happened, Katica Janeva is in prison and Myalkov is working with Zaev, pretty openly,
right.
supporting him against Vemero. I mean, there is a theory that this will just empower Vemero, that this will just, Mickovsky will come out on top of this. He had a central committee, he rallied everybody around him, people were, everybody in the party, the actual people working on the ground supported him. Myalkov may have costed him a few thousands, maybe 10,000 votes across the country, but not more than that. It was mostly the corona, the lower turnout, but Mickovsky even had a new statute of the party adopted, under which the leader needs to resign after 2 terms, possibly a 3rd term, but only if he's elected by 2/3 majority of the party delegates, and it's much more easier to convene a congress of the party, so the party leader cannot prevent a major change in the party from happening if most of the party is in favor. So, it's a good move to both say, I'm not going to be here forever, but also, the party will be more open for everybody. But at the same time, given the quality of the people who are the faction, the opposition in the party, people who voted for the name change, people who were tarred and feathered by SDSM, by the left as corrupt, crooked, and even murderers, and are now supported and working openly together with the left. So, it's an interesting development that the party has purged this faction. Literally the worst people in the party, as, advertised in the left-wing press, are out, and they're now joined, and they're now lauded and celebrated in the left-wing press, and working with Zaev. Some are even joking, okay, is this Zaev pulling Myalkov strings, or is it Myalkov pulling Zaev's strings? It's it's a very interesting question to be asked at this point.
It is, and yet who loses in all this? It's the Macedonians. So,
Mm. Oh yeah, of course.
well, that's interesting. I think it's all unfortunate, and as we come up on the anniversary and celebration of Ilinden next week, we'll have to see if we're actually gonna record on Ilinden, or if you want that time to celebrate with your family and grill, perhaps.
Yeah,
There you go. We'll figure that out next week.
that's probably gonna happen.
What's that?
I'm not. That's probably gonna be the plan. And you know who is leading the charge? You know, there is always a group of horsemen taking off from Skopje, from Lisice, and riding to Kruševo for 10 days ride through Macedonia. And this time the cavalry, as it's called, it's led by Rashila Mizrahi, the minister who Zaev had removed from the government after a torrent of anti-Semitic abuse for posting, for giving a statement in front of the Star of Kutlash, the symbol. So she's now the main horsewoman of the cavalry.
Good for her. Well,
yeah, that's a very
I hope we see some stories about that. Well, I think we have covered all the issues we talked about in our pre-podcast communications. So I think we'll bid each other adieu for this week, and there'll be plenty more to talk about next week. Again, not sure what day we're going to record it, but we will wish everybody a very happy Ilinden remembrance celebration, and talk to you again in a week or so.
Absolutely. Вечно да.
Take care.
You too, buddy. Take care.